Have you ever noticed that whenever you're about to be really happy, whenever something is going too well in your life, you sabotage everything, as if you didn't deserve it? As if being happy were a betrayal? I discovered something that will completely change how you see your mother. And it will explain why you feel guilty every time you choose what you really want. Was your mother cold with you? Did she criticize you when you dreamed big? Did she make you feel selfish for wanting more from life? Before hating her for this, you need to know the truth she never told you. The truth about what was done to her. Carl Jung discovered something devastating after 40 years studying families. Your mother didn't choose to be this way with you. She simply repeated with you exactly what was done to her. And today you will discover the truth about how 3 generations of emotional wounds reached you. Why your mother could only love in the limited way she was taught. And most importantly, how you can be the first in your lineage to break this cycle once and for all. If you've always had the feeling that something didn't fit in your life, but never managed to identify exactly what, subscribe now. Because in the next few minutes, you will have answers that will make your entire life make sense for the first time. Warning: what I'm going to reveal may be uncomfortable at first, but it will give you the key to a freedom you didn't even know was possible. Let me prove this to you with a real story that Jung told. A 35-year-old successful lawyer arrives at his office completely desperate. "Doctor, I have everything I always wanted. Career, money, recognition. So why do I wake up every day feeling..." Jung asks a simple question. What did your mother always dream of being? She stops. Her eyes fill with tears. She was brilliant, had the best grades in the course. But she got pregnant with me in the 2nd year and she always said I could be anything, but when I chose law, I never saw her so happy. In that moment, this woman realized she had spent 15 years meticulously building the life her mother could never. Kierkegaard called this the despair of not being oneself. You are desperate, but you can't even explain why. Because deep down, you know you were never really yourself. But the story goes even deeper. Because your mother isn't free. She carries the shattered dreams of her mother, and of her mother's mother. It's an invisible chain passing from generation to generation. Think about it. When was your grandmother born? 1940? 50? In an era where if a woman wanted to be a doctor, she heard, "That's not for women." If she wanted to work, "Your place is at home." If she wanted to choose who to marry, "Your parents know what's best for you." Your grandmother had to swallow entire dreams, had to suffocate parts of herself. And where do you think all that pain went? It passed directly to your mother, who grew up hearing, "Daughter, you will have all the opportunities I didn't have. But at the same time, don't disappoint the family. Be a good girl. Don't be selfish." And here's the part that will break your heart. Your mother gave you the only kind of love she knew. If she was rigid, it's because rigidity was the only language of care she learned. If she didn't hug you, it's because no one ever hugged her in a way that taught her how to hug. If she didn't know how to praise you, it's because no one ever told her she deserved praise. Your mother wasn't cruel by choice. She just delivered what she had. She loved you the only way she knew how to love. Heidegger discovered that we live in what he called das Man, the world of everyone does it this way. But this everyone includes emotional ghosts from past generations whispering that true love comes with sacrifice, that too much affection spoils, that showing affection is a sign of weakness. And so you became the end product of a production line of limited affections. Your great-grandmother learned, love is hard work, not beautiful work. Your grandmother grew up thinking, too much affection spoils, discipline builds character. Your mother believed, I love my daughter, but I don't know how to show it. So I'll protect her by being strong. And you grew up thinking that true love always comes with criticism, that real care disguises itself as excessive worry, that if someone truly loves you, they will always point out where you. We're in 2025. We have artificial intelligence, technology that connects the entire world, infinite possibilities for human communication and connection. But you still love with a heart programmed in 1950. Sartre said that man is condemned to be free, but you chose to love exactly like 3 generations of women who never knew they had permission to be gentle with themselves. The result? You became an emotional ghost. You may be successful. You may be respected. but you're living with an emotional operating system from 1950 running on 2025 hardware. How do you know if you're living your mother's unfulfilled dreams instead of your own? Jung identified 4 unmistakable signs that appear in almost every person who carries this emotional inheritance. If you recognize 3 of them, prepare yourself, because what I'm going to reveal will explain patterns in your life that you never managed to understand. First sign: you feel guilt every time you are happy in your own. Have you experienced this? That strange pang of guilt when you choose something you really want? As if being authentic were a betrayal of someone you love? This happens because you internalized her values and fears as if they were your own. Nietzsche explained this perfectly. When you betray these false values that aren't even yours, you feel as if you're betraying yourself, but you're not. You're betraying the version of you she created. It's as if you carried an internal voice saying, if you're too happy, if you shine too brightly, if you choose things she doesn't understand, you're being ungrateful, you're abandoning her. But think about it. Does this guilt make sense? Should you really feel bad for seeking your own happiness? Second sign: you feel responsible for her emotional happiness. Every time she's sad, your first reaction is, what did I do wrong? All your achievements need to be translated in terms she understands. Otherwise, you feel they're worth nothing. Here's the painful truth that nobody talks about. Your mother never learned to be happy alone. Nobody taught her that her emotional well-being was her own responsibility. She grew up in an era where a good woman sacrifices her own happiness for others. And now, without realizing it, she expects you to fill the emotional void she never knew. Jung called this role reversal. You became the emotional parent of your own mother. It's an impossible task that will suck your vital energy until you have nothing left to give even to yourself. And the worst part? It's not her fault. She's just asking for what she never knew she could give herself. Third sign: you sabotage your own success at the last moment. There's an unconscious fear of emotionally surpassing her. As if your ability to be happy, to love yourself, to have healthy relationships would diminish her value. So you unconsciously choose to stay emotionally small, safe, invisible. You repeat exactly the same patterns of self-sacrifice that she repeated her entire life. Kierkegaard said that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. You feel this dizziness every time you approach your true capacity to love and be loved, because that would mean leaving her behind in the only emotional model she knows. It's as if deep down you were saying, Mom, if I'm happy in my own way, you'll feel even more lost in yours. But she never asked for this. She just never knew there were other ways to love beyond what she was taught. Fourth sign: your relationships repeat exactly the painful patterns she lived through. You attract partners who recreate the same dynamics that hurt her. Unconsciously, you're trying to resolve her past through your present. If she suffered with emotionally unavailable men, you inexplicably feel attracted to people who can't truly connect. If she lived in relationships where she had to prove her worth all the time, you repeat this pattern. Jung discovered something hauntingly true. What you don't bring to consciousness appears in your life as destiny. You're not consciously choosing these patterns. They're being chosen by wounds that aren't even yours. If you recognize 3 or 4 of these signs, take a deep breath, because now comes the most challenging part. How to free yourself from this emotional inheritance without destroying the love you feel for those who raised you. The good news? It's possible to break these patterns. And when you break them, you're not just freeing your own life, you're healing entire generations of your family. Jung discovered something revolutionary. Liberation isn't rejection. It's differentiation. But not just from your mother. From an entire lineage of emotional limitations that passed from generation to generation, like an invisible inheritance. When you free yourself, you're not just saving your own life, you're saving 3 future generations. Think about it. Your daughter or future daughter won't carry the fears of 1950. Your grandchildren won't inherit traumas that aren't even theirs. You can be the circuit breaker that breaks an emotional pattern of centuries. Imagine that you're the first person in your family who will break the chain, the first who will say, "Stop. Here this pattern dies with me." From me onwards, my descendants will know other ways to love. Nietzsche said, become who you are. But how do you become who you really are when you don't even know who you are beneath all these layers of ancestral programming? It's like trying to find your own voice in a choir that has been singing for generations. I'll give you a practical protocol that Jung developed for his patients after decades observing how families transmit emotional patterns. First step, the generational inventory. Stop everything you're doing now. Get paper. This exercise will reveal things about you that you may have never realized. Make 3 columns on the paper. First column, what I really want. And here you're going to be brutally honest. Not what would be nice to want, not what other people want, not what is politically correct to want, what you, deep in your heart, really want. Second column, what my mother wants me to want. Think about all the explicit and implicit expectations she has about your life, the things that make her smile when you mention them, the paths she suggests, the comments she makes about your choices. Third column, what my grandmother would have. Here you need to think about her generation, the values of the time, what was considered important for a woman in that age. Now comes the part that will shock you. Be brutally honest. Many things will appear in all 3 columns, and that's completely normal. Some things you want may coincide with what they want. That's not a problem. But some things will be only in your mother's and grandmother's columns. These are the desires you carry, but that aren't genuinely yours. They're the emotional chains that were forged even before you were born. And here comes the most revealing part. Some things will be only in your column. These are your authentic desires, the parts of you that managed to survive family programs. These are the seeds of your true identity. Second step, the letters of understanding. Now you're going to write 3 letters that you'll never deliver, but this time, instead of anger or resentment, you'll write with total compassion. Because now you understand that they too were victims of the same system. To your great-grandmother, Grandma, you were born in an era where showing tenderness was seen as weakness, where a woman who was too affectionate was considered inadequate to prepare children for a harsh world. You didn't know it was possible to be strong and gentle at the same time. Nobody taught you that love could be demonstrated with sweet words, with physical affection, with celebration of achievements. You did the best you knew how to do with the emotional tools you had. I will learn what you couldn't learn. To your grandmother, Grandma. You lived in a transition. You saw the world changing, but still carried your mother's programming. You tried to protect me in the way you knew. Rigidity was the language of love you knew. Criticism was the way to prepare for the world. Constant worry was how you demonstrated care. I understand that now. You were trying to give me strength in the only way you knew, and now I will learn other languages of love that you didn't have access to in your time. To your mother, Mom, you gave me all the love that was available in you, all the affection you knew how to give. If spontaneous hugs were missing, it's because no one taught you that you deserved to receive hugs without reason. If words of encouragement were missing, it's because no one ever told you that you were amazing exactly as you were. If you were harsh sometimes, it's because someone convinced you that the world was too dangerous to raise a gentle daughter. I will break this cycle not out of rejection of you, but out of expansive love. I will love in a way that will retroactively heal all the limited forms of love that passed through our. After writing these letters, you'll do something symbolic but powerful. Burn them. Not because you're rejecting these women, but because you're transmuting the energy. Observe generations of limited emotional patterns turning into ashes, smoke, creating space for new ways to love. As Sartre taught, you need to consciously choose to be free to love in a broader way. Not to love less than they loved, but to love in ways they never were possible. You are healing emotional chains that were forged in an era when showing affection was considered weakness, where vulnerability was seen as a character. Third step, building the 21st century heart. When you consciously abandon the limited ways of loving that 3 generations automatically transmitted, space remains for the emotional revolution that you are really capable of. And here something happens that Jung called the magic of generational healing. You discover that you can be strong and gentle at the same time, that you can have clear boundaries and still be deeply affectionate, that you can be financially independent and emotionally affectionate, that you can be professionally successful and completely vulnerable in relationships. Emotional talents that were suppressed for decades finally awake. The ability to give and receive affection without guilt begins to flow naturally. The ability to celebrate your own achievements without feeling selfish emerges. The competence to ask for help without feeling weak develops. Relationships that were based on ancestral harshness patterns transform into authentic connections. You stop attracting people who repeat the painful dynamics of your family and begin to magnetize relationships that reflect your new emotion. You finally learn to love in the present with the emotional tools of 2025. No longer loving with the fears of 1950, where showing affection was dangerous. No longer with the emotional coldness of the 70s, where feelings were considered irrational. No longer with the compulsive self-sacrifice of the 90s, where taking care of yourself was seen as selfishness. You love with the emotional fullness available now, in the present, with decades of psychological knowledge, with social freedom, with cultural permission to be complete. You become the first woman in your lineage who really knows that showing affection is a form of strength, not weakness, that receiving affection is a basic human right, not a luxury that needs to be earned, that being genuinely happy isn't selfishness, it's setting an example of how life can be. Heidegger talked about the difference between being authentic and living in the world. Everyone does it this way. But this everyone includes ancestral emotional ghosts, whispering rules about how a woman should love, how she should behave, how she should prioritize others above herself. When you stop loving like every woman in your family has always loved and start loving as you can love now, in the present, with all the emotional possibilities available, emotional healing finally becomes possible. And here's the most beautiful paradox. You aren't rejecting your ancestors. You're honoring them in the most profound way possible. You're living the full emotional life they dreamed of having, but never knew how to achieve. You're being the free woman they would have liked to be, if they had had the opportunities you have. Every time you choose to be affectionate with yourself, you retroactively heal the girl your great-grandmother was, and who never received affection. Every time you celebrate your achievements without guilt, you fulfill your grandmother's secret dream of being recognized. Every time you love without fear, you free your mother from the emotional prison where she always lived. Your great-grandmother, who kept all tenderness in silence, because in her time showing affection was seen as weakness, that poorly prepared children for the harshness of the world. Your grandmother, who expressed love through constant sacrifice, because it was the only language of care she knew. Your mother, who protected you with rigidity and rules because that's how she learned that a dangerous world required harsh preparation. All of them loved you with every fiber of their being. They just didn't know that other ways of loving existed. They didn't know it was possible to prepare a daughter for the world while being both strong and affectionate. And here's the truth that will when you finally learn to be genuinely affectionate with yourself, you're fulfilling the most secret dream of all of them. When you allow yourself to receive love without guilt, without having to earn it, without having to be perfect first, you're retroactively healing the wound of all of them who thought themselves unworthy of affection. They didn't want you to carry their emotional harshness. They wanted you to be free to be gentle, to be happy, to shine. But they didn't know how to teach you gentleness, because they themselves never received permission to be gentle with themselves. Your great-grandmother grew up hearing that strong women don't cry. Your grandmother learned that good mothers always sacrifice themselves. Your mother believed that showing vulnerability was poorly preparing a daughter for a Each one of them did the best they could with the limited emotional tools they received. And now you have the historic opportunity to honor their love in a way they never imagined possible. Jung discovered something revolutionary. When a descendant truly heals emotionally, they free the entire family lineage from the programming that true love must come accompanied by pain, sacrifice, abnegation. It's as if your healing created waves that travel back in time, releasing the girl your great-grandmother was, and who could never express her sweetness, releasing the young woman your grandmother was, and who secretly dreamed of a world where she could be strong and tender at the same time, releasing the woman your mother could have been if she had received permission to be vulnerable. As Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Your why for this transformation isn't just individual. It's emotional and generational. You're learning to love for the hurt girl your great-grandmother was and never managed to heal. You're becoming the free woman all of them would have liked to be, and now has come the moment of your historic choice. A choice that will impact not only your life, but the future of all your descendants. You can continue carrying emotional programming from 1950 in the present day. Continue thinking that true love has to hurt. Continue believing that taking care of yourself is selfish. Continue repeating patterns of self-sacrifice that were useful for surviving in past eras, but today only limit your potential. Or you can have the courage to be the first generation of your lineage to live emotion. The first to use all the possibilities of connection, affection, authenticity that your ancestors conquered with blood, sweat, and tears, but never could fully enjoy. You aren't just choosing your life, you're choosing the emotional future of your descendants. Imagine, your children will inherit emotional freedom instead of ancestral limitations. They will grow up knowing they can be strong and affectionate, independent and affectionate, successful and vulnerable. They will receive infinite emotional possibilities instead of fears transmitted for generations. They will learn authenticity instead of family masks that no longer serve. Your grandchildren will grow up in a family where showing affection is natural, where asking for help is seen as wisdom, where being happy is celebrated instead of causing guilt. They will never carry the emotional weight of past generations because you had the courage to break this cycle. As Jung wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But this isn't just your personal privilege. It's your generational responsibility. You have the unique opportunity in your family's history to break emotional patterns that limited generations. Think about the responsibility, but also the power of this. You can be the person who says, here, in this generation, these patterns of emotional suffering stop. From me onward, my family will know other ways to love. If this video made you finally understand why certain patterns repeat in your life, if you recognized your family in these stories, subscribe to the channel now for more profound insights about psychology and personal transformation that can revolutionize your life. And leave in the comments. What emotional pattern in your family are you finally ready to break? Have you already recognized some of these dynamics in yourself? Share your experience because your courage to name this may be exactly the inspiration someone needs to break emotional chains of generations. And especially let me know that this content really touched something real inside you. Share with that friend who you know needs to understand this too. Sometimes, a video like this can completely change the trajectory of a life. Remember, you didn't come to the world to repeat the limited patterns of past generations. You came to be the first completely free version of your lineage. This is your hour. This is your choice. This is your opportunity to transform not only your life, but the emotional destiny of your entire lineage. Until the next video, where we'll continue this journey of emotional liberation. Keep shining.